another card I have in here that I'm sure people will be like, why on earth is this in there? In which case, feel free to put Grifta back in, is Staff of the Endbringer.
I'm people, by the way.
Welcome to episode 514 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, September 11th, 2025 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergon, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From North Rend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Kresh, Beef Squatch, David P., Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Crumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, May, NY Kiwi, Spine, Proby1, and by our patrons of the week, Brandon Downs and Raymond Lirag. You can go to patreon.com/CoinConcede to get perks like thank you at the top of the show, bonus post-show content, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder, I was playing a bunch of the deck that we're going to be doing in Decksplanations. Fyrakk DK, it's sort of the new deck that is quite potent on Ladder. As of recording, I'm 25-7 with it. I was
nice,
somewhat better than that, and then the most recent 3 were losses, but you know what happens. But then I had to start prepping for this weekend, which means I had to figure out how on earth Pocket's Hunter works, because we don't have Pocket casting with us this time. He's playing, so I need to need to work this out.
Pocket made a Discover Hunter, and we'll talk about sort of previewing the Summer Championships this weekend. But
there are no stats on this thing, and it is wicked challenging.
It sounds like a Pocket deck. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he basically just made his own Boar Priest, is what you're saying.
I wouldn't go that far, but it kind of. And then I have been playing not a ton, but a decent amount of Arena, primarily because Priest is good in Arena right now, and I want to play the Diamond Priest skin, which just is the best Priest skin, and I don't see them really supplanting that for quite some time, even though I generally am not a Priest player. You know, sometimes a cosmetic just speaks to you.
It's true. I also sprung for the new Diamond Priest skin, even though it's my first Diamond skin. I don't plan on buying too many of them. There's been quite a few before that I thought were cool, but I play a lot of Priests, and this one is like really well done. So it finally got me to buy a Diamond Priest skin.
I mean, I already had it because I was the one who was responsible for all this. So
you started it.
I did. I regret nothing.
It's very good.
It is very good. Yeah.
Hopefully, there will be an aggro priest in the final set of the year, so that Megasa and I can get a lot of good use out of it.
Or a control priest. I am waiting for Tic Tac to bait me successfully, and then I will be I'll be able to enjoy it. But not right now. Not with the priest cards we have.
So what have you been playing then?
Wow, whatever I can try, and none of it's working. So that's. I played some of this. I was doing well with this until I wasn't.
This being the Fyrakk DK?
The Fyrakk DK. I think I just ran into... I've been kind of trapped in Elo Hell at Diamond 5, and I think people are trying to outgreed it at the ranks that I'm at, and it's working.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just been running into all kinds of both kinds of warriors, both the mech warriors and the quest warriors, and I don't seem to have enough gas to get past either one. Now, in fairness, I've been working at a pretty significant sleep deficit for most of the week because I ended up catching a stomach bug Monday night, and that kept me up most of the night, and I've been kind of trying to recover from that, but I'm probably not going to get there until this weekend. So it's been a little bit touch and go. I have not been playing my best Hearthstone, that's for sure. And even this weekend, we were out and about a lot. Like we went to see Josh Johnson on Saturday rather, which was well worth it. Oh, if you have an opportunity to go see him live, do it. It's if you haven't watched him, just go look him up on YouTube. He's a fantastic comedian, but like he does like a set a week that he releases on YouTube that's all new material, and like, which is impressive enough. Like it's an hour of new material every week. But like we went to see him, it was an hour and a half show. The clip that he released was only an hour. So like there's an extra half an hour in the beginning and the end that wasn't in like whatever was on the set for this week. But then I was watching the video on YouTube, and there was a good 20 to 30 minutes that I do not remember in the set that we saw, because he did 3 shows Saturday night, which is kind of mind-blowing that he could do like 3 different sets with, they have the same structure, but with like completely different like whole sections of the show. Is just absolutely like I can't even wrap my head around it. So yeah.
I wonder how much is like, because I could see a world where he's like, all right, I'm gonna do this, these things different in each one, and sort of depending on how I feel like it hits with each of the audiences, we'll edit together the video that I feel like has the best hour of content, right? Or it's just like I have sort of this much content that's consistent, and I improv the rest, right? I could see either of those being the case.
I mean, I know I've watched some videos with him, and he says that he's basically just got like a bunch of jokes that don't have a place that he's written, and then he finds some way to like line them up against whatever's happening. But also, I wonder if he just like sometimes maybe he just has like too much material and he just like tries out different stuff, or he just like remembers this part of it that he was going to do and just goes into it, right? And then he's doing it, he just kind of does it different because it just feels different. I don't know. Doing stand-up comedy is the thing that like I don't know that I would be able to do, but certainly like being able to do like a whole hour that's different every week is hard enough, and then doing that, having a different show to show in the same weekend is I have no idea. Whatever it is, he's very good at it.
I'm fairly certain that, like, your average Netflix special comedy show, right? Like, when that comedian is on tour doing that special, they're doing that show at every location. Josh Johnson is, like, no 2 locations, no 2 cities are getting the same special, which is just madness.
Like we've seen Bert Kreischer live and then watched the special afterwards, and like most of it we remembered. Like it was pretty he's probably refined it between when he started doing the tour and the special, right? Like some of the jokes hit, some of them don't. You workshop some of the jokes, you drop some stuff, you put some new stuff in when stuff's not working, whatever. But like it was like 90% of it was familiar, and like this was like I just saw this on Saturday. I'm watching it on Wednesday. I'm like, I don't remember I would have remembered this whole thing about the Crocs. Like, like I know that wasn't there because I would have remembered the whole bit about the Crocs and the rats, and I'm not going to spoil anymore. You should just go watch it. But like, that wasn't there. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, it almost feels like gaslighting a little bit, to be honest.
When I was in high school, I did a dance and I did choreography, and I would tweak the choreography I was doing so much that I would have a bunch of trouble remembering which version was the current version when I had to perform it. Unless I really was disciplined about nailing it down like a week before and not changing anything, because with choreography you can't really write it down very effectively. So I had videos of it, but so sometimes I would end up doing a different thing on different shows just because I couldn't remember what the current thing was. But I think Josh Johnson's more professional than that.
Yeah. Anyway, so what have you been playing?
Haven't played a lot the past couple of days. My husband, I think I mentioned like in Concedes last week, tore a tendon in his elbow, and so he had surgery this morning for that. I took a day off, drove him to the hospital. Surgery went well, and he's home now and he's resting, and he was like, no, you should do the podcast. So here I am. He's like, I'm just going to be asleep anyway, or watching shows that you don't want to watch, because he likes, when I'm not available to watch things, that's when he watches like the horror or whatever thing that I don't want to see, because I am not up for that kind of show. He's been watching Alien Earth without me, for example.
Yeah.
And maybe he's watching that right now. I don't know. Surgery went well, but it went a little longer than we thought. And I was just kind of sitting there with no ability to know what was going on and just waiting for them to call me. That was somewhat stressful. But did get a call from the surgeon fairly soon in that process saying everything went well. But then I was just waiting. So then finally I broke and was like, I'm just going to get lunch at the cafeteria. Because, I mean, we got there at 6 a.m. At noon, I'm like, I'm just going to get lunch. And then as soon as I order the food, and it's going to be a minute because I waited till noon, so everyone else wants food too, they call me and they're like, oh, we're wheeling him out right now. Go pick him up. So I abandoned my food.
Oh, no.
And picked him up. Luckily, we had some leftover chicken vindaloo at home that was pretty good.
Nice.
So, but in terms of Hearthstone, I have had the most success with aggro DH, just Pain Demon Hunter, and it has the Ziliax, that's 4 mana, 5/7, and it does 3 damage to you, and then it doubles its attack at the start of the next turn. All the pain cards. Pretty standard to what we've had before, pretty effective. But I have also played some more unusual things. So I lost to a Seismopod druid, and then friended the person, and they gave me the list and did not seem surprised. I think people had just been friending them. It seems like it came from Fyrakk, or at least was first streamed by Fyrakk.
I think Tic Tac was working on something like that too, so it might have been...
Maybe just a special list.
Might be that list specifically was Fyrakk, because I know I heard Tic Tac was working on something like that. I tried some of that. That was one of the many things I tried this weekend too, and it also worked until it didn't.
I have a bunch of 6/3s, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
So it's running Aviana, but that's not actually really the point in this. It's not really an Aviana druid. Like, that's there to give you more ridiculous stuff in a longer game. But Seismopod is a new mini set card, 9 mana, 9/9 beast. Taunt, elusive, death rattle, give all minions in your hand and deck +3/+3. And you can get them back with Hydration Station, or do it again with Endbringer Umbra. You have Ramp, of course, to get this out sooner. You also have Ensmollen, a card no one has previously played, that is 3 mana and says reduce the cost and attack of minions in your deck by 1. So you actually don't care when you're then going to buff them all with Seismopod, and it helps you get that out earlier. And you also have other taunts. And importantly, you also have Greybow. Really, I suppose we could call this a Greybow druid that also runs Seismopod. There are decks like Quest Warlock that just cannot deal with Greybow once you've gotten him going. If Quest Warlock can get under you, but if they don't get under you and you get Greybow going, it's just like really hard for them. And you can get it back with Hydration Station if they do clear it.
Well, and you can Umbra with multiple Greybow rattles in there, right? And then you're in the situation where, like, you summon, some taunt and poisonous from Blobby and get the Greybow death rattles on them from the Umbra proc.
Or they just hit Umbra herself, and that's fine too. Yeah.
The other things are easier to kill to then summon your 2 Greybows, but yeah.
I mean, you just want it on something that doesn't have taunt, basically, so that you have a chance to do the thing. The problem I was having with it is that I was just running into Death Knights, and like I was at 15 max health by the time that I got to get any of my minions down, because I would just get leeched, and you have no way to deal with early leeches.
Just unlucky, dude. You just gotta get the force.
I gotta get good. Yeah.
Yeah, it has Innervate, and then the next lowest mana is 3 for Ensmollen, New Heights, and Tortollan Traveler.
Yeah, it's the only Elise deck I've seen that forgoes 1 and 2 cost.
Yeah, because of course we do also have Elise. You can copy your Greybows or whatever. Yeah, I think I went about even with it. Although I haven't been playing my best Hearthstone this week, I will say. But it is fun if you want to do druid things. I put the link to a replay of it working. They're just totally shutting out a poor Quest Warlock. I also put just the list, and it sounds like there's other ones in this vein. And then today, I was tired enough that I almost was like, never mind on the podcast, actually. So I didn't have the greatest win rate with this, but I was misplaying. I would like do stuff and then be like, oh, that was a misplay every single game. And I got some wins despite, so that's actually a point in its favor. So Exotic Mango in our Discord, World 8 was also working on this with them, made a Dracorex Briar spawn warrior. So it's got Fyrakk and Ysera and Ziliax and Neralex, but it's also got the Great Dracorex, which is the new mini set card, 8 mana, 5/12 Beast Dragon Rush. After this attacks an enemy minion, it damages all other enemy minions. So that's very helpful. It's got Chem Spell, which can get down your Briar Spawn Drakes or something lower if you haven't drawn the Briar Spawn Drakes. You can get back the Dracorex or the Briar Spawn Drake with Succumb to Madness, discover a friendly dragon that died this game and resummon it. So you don't necessarily need to have your like first Briar Spawn Drake like be the most effective. You can like have them come back and then do a ton of damage all at once. You have Draw with All You Can Eat. You have Ramp with New Heights, Trail Mix, Clutch of Corruption to get more dragons. Hostile Invader is your main like trying not to die. My first game I lost against a Death Knight because the Creature of Madness 3-drop that they got was that 5/1 Lifesteal Rager, except they got it with Divine Shield Wind Fury.
Oh, that's pretty
on
good.
3.
Yeah.
And I did not have a Hostile Invader. And did not draw one. So that can happen. It is if you're seeing more greedy stuff. And I did also win against if you're in a place where you're seeing a lot of paladins, that was I just destroyed a paladin with it. I included that replay as well. And then I had one game. This is when I was like, okay. I had a rough first couple games, but that was just me to some extent. Was when on turn 6, I had a Neralex, a Xavius, a Briar Spawn Drake with the Divine Shield Wind Fury, and an egg of the Briar Spawn Drake. And then they conceded because they had nothing. So sometimes that happens too. Again, it's not. We don't have stats on this deck, but if you are interested in trying out something a little different, I also linked that in the show notes. So yeah, I couldn't play at the hospital because they could call me at any moment, and also I'm not going to trust that internet. I was trying to read a book for a class that I'm teaching, and I'm going to need to catch up on this weekend. It was a good book, and I just didn't get very far. Once I had completed like the New York Times spelling bee, I was like, what do I do now with the amount of brain power that I have? And that can be interrupted at any moment. I don't know. I don't want to like read the news or something.
So here's the top tip. Download Peglin for your phone. So it is Peggle is a roguelike. It doesn't need any internet. And it is good enough to keep you busy when you are not able to play Hearthstone because either you have no consistent internet or you're afraid you're just going to get interrupted. It is delightful and it is good enough to keep you occupied for a while.
Okay, Peglin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Peglin. Yes. That is my current go-to game when I am... So when I take the train to work, if I'm sitting, I will play on my Steam Deck. If it is too crowded that I have to stand the whole time, then I need something else to do on my phone. And almost every phone game needs internet of some sort, but Peglin doesn't. So that is my go-to.
All right. I will also put out a brief plug for Merge Maestro, which is a merge game, but a roguelike and offline. So yeah, and like $3 for the full version.
Yeah, I don't think Peglin is that much more expensive. It might be $5, but it is worth every penny. Like I've definitely gotten my money's worth out of that game. But back to the game that we're supposed to be talking about, and we have some news, and we have tournament news. So we have a tournament this weekend. So we're going to talk about that too. But we have some news before we get there.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
Okay, so we got a hotfix patch on September 4th, which was this like a week ago, because we recorded early last week. So this was coming out on Thursday, but it's still news to us because we haven't recorded since then. Which is restoring Lion Weight, which is the rogue quest, to be playable in Constructed just in time for the meta to move past it and no one to be interested in it anymore. It had its shining 3 hours in the sun after the mini set came out, and now it's not good enough anymore. But it is safe to play and it's unbanned, along with Whizbang the Wonderful, which is also unbanned. Torga now correctly draws a Kindred card and another card to activate it, which it did not do before. And apparently there was a bug in Wild. There is a secret in Wild called Frozen Clone, which says after your opponent plays a minion, add 2 copies of it to your hand. Somehow, this was allowing mages to get under Fell Rift, which is the reward for the new Warlock quest. I don't know how that works, because I guess maybe completing the minion that completed the quest would give them the quest reward. I don't know. I don't know how that works, but it doesn't do it anymore. So, you don't have to worry about that, I suppose. They also have tweaked, and tweak is probably underselling it. They have substantially reduced the requirements for the current in-game event. The numbers have been reduced. So the summon or destroy X minions in traditional modes weekly quest went from 2,000 minions down to 500 minions. Summon 1, 2, or 3 cost minions X times is down from 100 to 75. That's the rest of these are daily quests. The summon X minions daily quest has gone from 200 to 100. The take X turns has gone from 300 to 30.
And thank God, because 300 turns, even with the plus for ranked, was just brutal.
I mean, it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot of games that you would have to play just in a day. And also, draw X cards went from 300 to 30. Now, the numbers still show as they were until the next major patch, which is 33.4.2, which we haven't gotten yet. So, I did see some posts on Reddit saying, "Did everyone just suddenly get a piece of the event quest cleared, like all at once, because it just gave you whatever credit as soon as the hotfix hit when it launched." So if you had already done your 500 minions with whatever bonuses you have, it would just give you that and start moving on. And there's no indication in the client that anything had happened. So if you're wondering why that happened, this is why. And it should be a lot easier more manageable to complete the rest of it going forward. And I'm glad, because like these quests are designed to keep people engaged in the game, but there's a limit to how high they can do it before like the quest just seems unattainable and people just don't bother. So they were well above that, and I'm glad that they took the opportunity to bring those back down to earth and make them more attainable so people actually be able to complete those quest lines as they expect to. Also, they apparently did not have Lost City cards as part of Arena. Now they do. So that's all that happened in that hotfix, and that's more or less all the news that we have. But we do have a Masters tour this weekend, which means we get to talk about tournaments.
It's the grand tournament.
So, the Hearthstone Summer Championships are this weekend. Probably will have already occurred by the time you're listening to this, barring patrons, but check it out. If you're a fan of esports, if you just want to try and get better, watching the best players play is, one of the ways to do that. It is admittedly not a very wide format. I would say there's sort of like 3 decks, and then people flexed the 4th pick. Basically, everyone has DK Rogue. I think there might be like 1 or 2 players that didn't bring DK. Overwhelmingly Quest Warlock, overwhelmingly Fyrakk Rogue, lots of Aulonius Druid, a fair amount of Mech Warriors, which is a response to the Aulonius Druids and the Quest Warlocks. Yeah, 2 Nebula Shamans, 1 Protoss Priest. Pocket coming in with the Discover Hunter. Thank God. I was working on that deck to try and learn it to be able to talk about it this weekend. But God, I hope he does well, because that deck is quite interesting. I initially did terribly, and then I kind of figured it out. It's a weird deck to play, but it'll be fun to watch and talk about. And I'm sure he'll do much better with it than me. But what's up, Pocket?
He's also playing Starship Rogue.
Not the only player to bring Starship Rogue, actually. Phil, who we mentioned earlier about that druid, it's the full Starship lineup from Phil.
But there's an actual gravitational displacer in Pockets Rogue.
It's a good card. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is like a full Starship Rogue, Starship Warlock. That's less unusual,
Starship schematic. Yeah.
And there's even a biopod in the Discover Hunter, but that is the only Starship piece. But
well, there could be a biopod in the Starship Rogue, if you praise Yogg enough.
I mean, I think there's something to be said about one of the ways that you beat Quest Warlock is to flip the board, and Starships can be a good way to do that, where like you just create this massive board out of nowhere. In the case of the Hunter, it is just a finisher, right? There's no pieces besides the biopod, but there's just so many ways that you can get copies of biopod that eventually you have like an 8/8 or maybe, if you get a little lucky here and there, a 10/10 biopod, but divide by 2 and that's how many procs you have of the death rattle. So even with just one Terrascale Stalker, that means you're like proccing that death rattle a bunch of times and then playing Ceaseless to proc it again. If you've played Shaladrisil, you can give it an extra +5/+5 before you play the Ceaseless. If you have not corrupted the Shaladrisil when you play it, then you can do that before you play the Terrascale Stalker. You can't do it if you're giving immune, because then you can't target with the Terrascale Stalker. But it's a really cool deck with a lot of moving pieces and parts that it's the thing I'm most excited to cast this weekend. But yeah, I think Starship DK is what people went with over the Fyrakk DK, even though the Fyrakk is sort of the hotter deck on ladder. Again, because of that Warlock matchup, if you know you're entering a place where people are gonna have Quest Warlock because it's one of the decks right now, then Starship DK is better because you get that board flip that is just overwhelming. And then Fyrakk Rogue is just kind of good into stuff. Like even its bad matchups are not that bad, right? For Fyrakk Rogue, and a lot of people have different flavors of tech, right? Whether it's Customs Enforcer, as we saw played a role in playoffs, or the Demolition
Renovator. Yeah,
less of that than Customs Enforcer, but yeah, Demolition Renovator. Obviously, when every deck has Elise, basically, except the Quest Warlock. Let's see, do the Mech Warriors have? Did they make room for?
Yeah,
Elise?
They do, because they make a 1/1 copy of the thing that deals 8 damage. So they run Elise also.
Tabika are one of Protoss Priest. There's not Elise in that, and there's not Elise in the Quest Warlocks, but otherwise, Elise is the most common card, right? Drunk Paladin doesn't.
Yeah, there's one Drunk Paladin from Soyoran.
Yeah, and Drunk Paladin is... I don't know how that's going to fare here. I think it can be decent into the Rogue, but yeah, in general, it is just so hard to try and target the Rogue that the few people who had last time, I think, have not tried to do that again.
It's probably just ban Rogue at that point. I mean, if that's what you're going to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I forget if Phil was also the person who had... It's such a weird thing that I feel like they must be the person who in playoffs had a full Starship lineup, because it would be weird for them to make it through and then not do that again and someone else to do it. So I've got to imagine that's the case.
I mean, if they're going to make Starships their whole personality, they've got a limited amount of time to do that before they rotate. So they may as well do it now. Yeah,
Pocket says Phil changed 0 cards from his playoffs lineup, which fair. Not a lot has changed. I'm a little bummed that there's not really the Fyrakk DKs, because I think it is sort of, more fun and interesting than the Starships. But of course, this is for real money. People are going to pick what they think is the best into the field, and it seems on average Starship is doing better there than the Fyrakk deck for what is expected to be faced. Notably, the couple of Fyrakk lists that are here have not kept the egg, which I sort of said last week. It was unlikely to stick around, the egg, and it has not stuck around. We'll get into that in the Decksplanations.
Labatar, though, in whose list did I
And
click
Nightmare's list, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I should mention, if you happen to be watching this before the tournament starts, Choose Your Champion is the thing. There's a link in the show notes, or there will be for patrons. Go do Choose Your Champion. I picked Pocket because I don't root against Pocket. I didn't even look at the lineups. I just, I figure that's basically, like betting on the house at this point. So fairly safe pick to get me some packs. But if I knew that there was someone running Blob of Tar, I might have been swayed. So I'm glad I didn't look at the lineups before I made my decision.
Yeah,
because I do love my blobby boy. So
yeah,
I'm easily persuaded.
There's maybe a couple cards different from Phil's lineup, but not significant. I had to submit my caster pick, right? Although I did not realize there was an actual Choose Your Champion thing. And I was like, well, I want to do Pocket, but if we're literally all doing Pocket, then I guess I'll go with Tansoku, because I like his lineup feels like it has a direction other than, best decks, because he's got the Nebula Shaman and the Mech Warrior. I think he's on a target Warlock. I have to double check the matchup stats and things, but yeah.
This feels like a prisoner's dilemma situation where all of you probably had the same thought process, and then none of you were going to end up picking him at the end of the day because you all thought everybody else was going to pick him.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what they ended up putting down for us. I didn't see what other casters picked, but just looking at decks and sort of liking variety, I was like, well, Discover Hunter or Nebula Shaman and Mech Warrior.
Yeah,
you got me there. But yeah, should be a blast. Always have fun casting these things. As usual, half-hour delay. As always, disclaimer: these are lists built for tournament and an expected field. Buyer beware if you're gonna just take these on ladder straight up.
Even more so for a tournament like this, where it's a 16-player field with groups.
Oh, yeah.
Where the groups ahead of time, where you right. are very often building not even for the field that you're expecting, but actually the 3 people in your group and how they tend to play. So there are going to be even more targeted things in these lineups than there would be, say, in playoffs, where you're playing against a much wider field. So that's also something important to keep in mind, that just because, someone is playing a particular build of this deck or just has the chutzpah to play Drunk Paladin into this field doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to work for you in a wide... It doesn't even have to do with ranks as much as just the variety of opponents you're likely to face. Where if you know the 3 people that you're going to face, you know what kinds of decks they're good at, and you know what their proclivities are, then you are going to have a much different approach to deck building than you would be for just any random comer that you're going to run into on ladder.
Plus, you have a ban.
Yeah, you have a ban. And there's just things I have been seeing a lot of Starship Demon Hunter. There's 0 of that in this event, right? Because there is a sort of sense of what people will be bringing, and so they know that there's 3 to 6 decks that they can expect, right? Please keep watching that. We want Hearthstone esports to grow so we can have it bigger and better next year, and viewership numbers help with that.
Make sure, even if you're watching a co-streamer, those, because there will be people co-streaming the tournament, those also count towards the overall viewership numbers, so that's okay. Right, as long as you're watching someone who is, I would imagine anybody who's co-streaming is pretty much approved to do it. Those numbers still count, and that's the most important thing, is just that we get a good viewership showing, so that there's a case to keep doing esports, because we apparently have to worry about that every year, and we're getting close to the point of the year where we have to start worrying that there's not going to be esports again next year. So
I've got a good feeling, Like Derek and TJ have been doing a great job. I haven't checked in if they've done another Talkstone, but there were these In the Mind of a Pro videos with Gabby and Gamer RBG, where they talk about some of their sort of storied games, and Derek's a very fun interviewer. We don't have him casting, but it's cool to have him sort of still doing some of that content role. Yeah, the production this year has been just so much better to work with, and largely I think people have seen that I think it looks better too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So nothing but good things to say about the new production crew, and you'd never believe that. I think it was the case for them that this was their first time doing Hearthstone, with the first event of this year. But they have a good system, right?
Yeah. Definitely compared to the people who were doing it last year, who seemed like every time was the first time. So yeah.
Yeah. Vendors have shifted constantly in terms of production, which is a bummer, both because then you can't build up like a relationship and assets and things as well. But yeah, it also means that you've got people, starting from square one. But yeah, Geek Lounge has been great. Really hope that they get next year as well. I don't see why they wouldn't, previously I think we've worked with people who it's like, well, their main stuff is like CS:GO, right? Which is just a different world. I think there's quirks to Hearthstone production, like the fact that you have to flip one hand upside down, so you need to do this weird double spectator thing, and then they need to. It's weird.
It's amazing that they still haven't just built that into the client. Like I know it's got to be hard, but we've had spectator mode for 11 years. Like I'm surprised. I know it's got to not be a huge priority, but even so, anyway, I'm sure that it's the best they can do and they can't do any better. But, given whatever state that the code is in, being held together with spit and a prayer. But
yeah, I mean, this is it. We've got this, and then there will be last chance qualifiers later in the year, right? Which I believe we will also be able to broadcast. I think that'll likely be another just like 1 day deal, sort of the way playoffs was, and then Worlds, and then hope we'll be sort of waiting room for announcement of esports next year. Fingers crossed. But although it is not quite as prominent as I expected in this event, Fyrakk Death Knight I think is still a pretty solid choice for ladder. So let's go talk about that.
All right, so we've already introduced this deck to some extent, but basically we are talking about a Blood Unholy Control Death Knight that has the same top end as Fyrakk Rogue, hence Fyrakk Death Knight. We've got Neralex, Ladrasil, Fyrakk, Ysera, Twin Perfect Ziliax, Ceaseless. We've also got Stitch Giants in this list because we are a Death Knight and we are spending corpses. It's similar to the list that we mentioned last week from No Hands, which was running the egg, but we are no longer running the egg because we don't need to. So most people, we will get to Edel's list in a second. Most people, therefore, also cut the Dissolving Ooze. The most popular list on HS Guru seems to be from Tic Tac. All these lists are quite similar. You have sort of the Leech package, and although actually I saw from Tic Tac's stream today, he had cut the Infested Breaths for Blob of Tar, that'll make you happy, Wicked, and Zephyrus.
Oh, yeah. See, I knew he was good people.
But generally people, you're running Hideous Husk, right? You're running Sanguine Infestation. It's just good. Infestation, sorry. And you have Exarch Maladar as one way to spend corpses for your Stitch Giant. You also have Corpse Explosion. The sort of original lists only have one Corpse Explosion. Vicious Syndicate today argues that you should run 2 corpse explosions, and that's also what Edelweiss has been doing, and has cut the Headless Horseman for that. And that's actually the only change between these lists from Vicious Syndicate and this Tic Tac list. Edelweiss, I will let you tell us about your change.
Yeah, so I took this from like Diamond 5. I was similar to you, Wicked, like a week ago in Diamond 5 ELO Hell, and then this deck came out and I was like, haha, a new Death Knight that's not starships. Glorious. But sort of immediately was like, egg, no thank you. And I listened to VS, and he had expressed questions about Foam Render and Grifta, but and I agreed on keeping 2 corpse explosions. But I really liked the ooze because you don't need to be eating a 20/20 for dissolving ooze to be good. It happens that there's a lot of big minions for you to eat and put on your charge hero power. You've got the Stitch Giants or 8/8s. Elise location can give you a lot of power, right? I like to, in longer matchups, go for summon a copy, either 5/5 or sometimes even 10/10. And if you get summon a copy plus the, bonus attack, that's huge, because then you do the hero power, you summon a big copy of it, they get the bonus attack, you hit with the big one, you eat the big one, and then you put it on the smaller one, and like you've just doubled up on that huge amount of bonus attack. There's also stuff, right, where you play Corrupted Shaladrsil, and rather than playing a big dragon that you don't know if it's going to get to hit them, you just eat the corrupted dragon, and now you have 14 attack to put on your hero power.
And you also sometimes just get Dark Gifts that give you Divine Shield and Wind Fury. And then you can sometimes just throw it on that too. Like if you have those things will often stick because of the Divine Shield. And then if that sticks, then you just, okay, and I'll just give all the stats to that, and then you get to hit with it twice.
Yeah, or if you pick up a charge, right, from a Dark Gift, then you can Ceaseless something, play your charge minion, ooze the Ceaseless, put it on that, or if you get something big with charge because of Xavius, right, then you can eat the big charge thing and then put it on your hero power, right, and double up. There's lots of fun ways that I sort of was like, I don't know how this ooze looks in stats, because it's the kind of thing where you don't play it until it's like winning you the game. But it has felt good and definitely gotten me a lot of games that I think people just didn't expect to be dead, and then they were. Infested Breath, I feel like if you're facing any like real aggro, is just a must. Like,
as an aggro player, facing Infested Breath is just the worst. You have something with 3 health? Not anymore.
No, you don't.
And then you can't even kill the leech now. And it's such a strong turn to play against early games from anything aggressive.
And the mirror as well, right? In terms of the your opponent's early game, right? Because optimal early game is like Morbid Swarm into Handler or Creature of Madness, and Infested Breath is quite good into those things.
Yeah. Plus, it's also like, if you don't have a way to deal with their leeches, then that's just like a lot of incremental life gain that they're getting, that you then makes it a harder hill for you to climb to. So I would expect that Tic Tac's probably seeing less of the mirror and less aggro where he's playing, but I've seen a lot of aggro over the last like couple of days. I've basically been seeing both sides of the spectrum, like either extreme aggro or extreme greed, and to try, because that's what this has been kind of the most targeted deck, because it's been the most popular, and so people are either trying to go under it or try to go over it. But either way, if you don't have an answer for that, like, I could see making a decision that you're going to give up one end of the spectrum to make yourself better against the other, but you should be doing that with eyes wide open, because that can be a frustrating road to walk down if you're not careful.
Yeah. And I also want to point out, like, I don't know if this is just something he was experimenting with.
Yeah, sure.
Or, right. I just saw that he was playing it today on H's Guru when I went to see if there were changes that he'd made to the list. So, Yeah.
We've established last week that sometimes I go to look and see what he's doing, and then I go to a stream and the deck is titled bad. so sometimes that also happens. So that's worth keeping in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another card I have in here that I'm sure people will be like, why on earth is this in there? In which case, feel free to put Grifta back in, is Staff of the Endbringer.
I'm people, by the way.
I just, I look at the list and I mean, certainly before Infested Breath was put back in, it's like, there's just not a lot of early game. Like, it's nice that Creature of Madness can be your 2 and your 3, but although it is limited, it is good to have your early drops for this deck. And Staff of the Endbringer is something that can help you clean up things like Morbid Swarm 1/1s, or the occasional like Quest Warlock, early game minion, whatever. And it's just, there are matchups where, again, it's low data, so I don't know, but if you have Staff of the Endbringer in your opening hand, it'll read like 80% for win rate, because you can just get it going so quickly. And the power of Ceaseless is not the 10/10, right? It's the fact that you are generally getting a 0 mana clear that you then develop behind. A Staff of the Endbringer is that, but with a different form of setup, right? It's also 6 damage, and there have been the odd game where that has been the 6 damage I needed to kill my opponent, or I win with the point of damage from the weapon swing. It does mean that I'm not running Foam Render, because if you have Foam Render equipped, you are never equipping Staff of the Endbringer afterwards.
Well, if that's the order that you're doing it in, I was actually thinking that it might
Sure.
be better with Foam Render in the list, because if you're going in the other order, then you have a clear on demand, and you get to swing 5 damage face immediately.
There's pros and cons, right? Yeah. I found that I was not equipping Foam Render that often.
Yeah.
And other times I was playing the deck, or I would have to like forgo swings to make sure I had enough corpses for Corpse Explosion, things like that.
Yeah, the spending of the corpses is actually a cost that you don't think about a lot, and corpse management is kind of first of all, a very weird phrase, but also it's something that you do have to think about, because you're also running Exarch. I can't read the thing.
Exarch Maladar.
I never even remember what the name of the card is. I just know the one that spends corpses to play your next spell. Play your next card. And if you're not careful, that's going to be a dead card 90% of the time, because it is very easy to incidentally spend corpses. In this deck, you're spending corpses if you're not careful on Morbid Swarm. Generally, I think on Morbid Swarm, like more often than not, I'm choosing make 1/1 ants over the 4 damage. Just because it's so important to get corpses, and also because spending the corpses is a real cost in this deck. But you can be spending with that if you're not careful. You're spending with Corpse Explosion. You're spending with Reanimated Pterodax. And then you sometimes just don't have enough for a Corpse Explosion to do enough, or for Exarch Maladar to be able to discount something. Because, like, that's the shadow step of this deck, or that's what it's supposed to be, right? The way that you get Narrowlex out early, and ideally you're going Maladar into Narrowlex into Fyrakk, or into Ysera if you just want the ramp.
You don't mean shadow step, you mean scoundrel.
The scoundrel. Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming it's shadow stepped on the scoundrel, right? But yeah, I skipped the step. But but that's the scoundrel of this deck that makes it so that you can play that more quickly. But if you're not managing your corpses right, then you won't be able to do that. And it's also, the Stitch Giants can be a little bit of a distraction in that way sometimes, because those will be sitting, like, there are definitely hands where you're sitting staring at a handful of 9 mana cards, wondering what kind of life choices led you to this moment. But the problem is that you don't necessarily want to just spam corpses, because if you're not using them for a good reason, because then you don't have a good Exarch, you don't have a good Corpse Explosion, and those are the things that make a difference between winning and losing with this deck a lot of the time.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need to, like, Reanimated Pterodax, play a 4 mana Stitch Giant.
Yeah. That's fine too. Yeah.
Yeah, giants are often okay even without that. And then part of also why you want the Morbid Swarm to be ants is because then it's +2 corpses instead of minus. Right.
Yeah.
So, and as well as the leeches are corpses, you know, making copies with Elise, usually you're trying to do that later, but it is corpses.
But even the 2/1 Raptors, right? Like, that's a real consideration. Like, it doesn't seem like the 2/1 Raptors would be a good choice off of Elise, but often, like, with the 5 mana location, that's 3 corpses. That's in addition to being able to just trade off 6 health worth of stuff. So that is a real consideration. Depending on what your hand looks like and what you have left in your deck, sometimes like the 3 Raptors is actually the right pick over something else in this deck.
And that's actually part of the logic behind cutting Headless Horseman, is that you actually don't necessarily want your hero power to be changed, right? Because you need the corpses. And in Edel's version, if you want to do the Dissolving Ooze thing, then you need a hero power that has a charge. But even without that, having the charge minion that gives you a corpse at the end, it can be important rather than replacing it with Headless Horseman's hero power.
Yeah, and like, you don't want the game to go long. Like, you can go long, but at least the way I view the deck, it is not a thing that you want, and Horseman is sort of like, okay, if it goes long, I will have this infinite hero power of making stuff. And that's just not really the lane I want to be in with the deck. Again, as you say, particularly with the Dissolving Ooze. I will accept that sometimes that means like a Quest Warrior is going to run me out of stuff, especially if they demolition my Elise location. Like, you really lean on Elise location value for grindier matchups for my list because of, no foam render, no horseman. But yeah, I just sort of prefer having that more kind of aggressive bent. And because I have Staff of the Endbringer, like, yes, the best case scenario is to put it out on 3, but sometimes in longer matchups, you can just have that sitting there. And now you sort of have this trump card of like, I have Ceaseless and Endbringer to have a like 0 mana clear to develop behind. And I'm really aggressive with like Hideous Husk stuff. There have definitely been things where I like copy, either the leech or the husk itself for just like huge leech turns, particularly against someone that I am expecting to heal, right? To say like, hey, actually, your Ziliax or your Quest Warlock life gain stuff, whatever, is not going to be able to heal this away because I've reduced your max health.
I think it's a good point that this is a control deck, but it's not an attrition deck. And that's an important thing. Like, you don't run Kill Jaden in this deck, right? You actually have to have a plan to win the game at some point. Like, you are not going to be able to just sit around and remove everything. I mean, against some decks you probably can. Like, if it's a very aggressive deck and their threat density, like they're hoping to overwhelm you in the first few turns, and that like the quality of their threats is not good enough to sustain them if you're able to withstand that. But like, if you're going against another mid-range deck or another control deck, like, you actually do have to end the game. And you need to have a plan for how you're going to get all that damage through. And it's not just going to be by clearing board after board, because your board clears aren't great outside of Corpse Explosion. Like, you're relying on a lot of like rush minions and different like husks,
and just Fyrakk being Fyrakk.
Fyrakk being Fyrakk, and like, you're relying on Ziliax, you're relying on Pterodaxes, like, you've got a couple of Corpse Explosions, you've got the Infested Brats, but like, you're not running Pyromancer and the poison breath, or the one that gives it poisonous. Like, you're running Ceaseless Expanse, but that comes online really late. So you don't have the kinds of clears that you would have in like a pure attrition control deck, and you need to kind of act like it, which means that you're taking the damage where you can. You're going to have to really think about when you want to trade and when you want to go face, and understand what your role is in any given matchup. Like, obviously, if you're against something that's playing like double your attack Ziliax on 4, yeah, remove stuff. But if you're playing against a warrior, you probably need to be ignoring whatever stuff you're allowed to ignore, and hitting them in the face as much as you can, because if they are allowed to go long, they're going to have more stuff than you are, and you're not going to be able to remove all of it.
Yeah, and in that sense, it's somewhat like the Fyrakk Rogue, right? And that was something that I think I haven't played a ton of this, and when I did it first, I wasn't doing that well because I was trying to hit the balance. I think I was realizing I needed to hit a better balance of it's not a super fast deck, but it's not a super slow deck, right? Like it does want to be proactive. So if you like mid-range decks, dare I say,
Tempo.
It's more Slempo, really.
No, oh god, what
have I done?
I walked into that one.
You did. You don't need to give me a very wide opening for that. It's that I will take the tiniest opening, like sending something into the exhaust port of the Death Star. That's all I need.
Well, you have these big minions and you want them to connect face. You have Shaladrisil and you want that to do damage to face, right? You want Fyrakk to ideally, hopefully be doing damage to face, as well as potentially clearing the board if necessary. Grifta could also be, if you're running Grifta instead, like that's a way to, you want to use that to like steal a big thing and send it to the face there, or like send six damage face often, right? Because you're piecing together your win. And you don't have endless armor gain and endless ways to deal endless damage to deal with endless armor gain. So,
and I think there was a paladin deck ages ago at this point, where I remember in our explanations for that we had to say like, hey, don't always just play your free thing as soon as you can, right? Like play it when you can sort of get the maximum utility out of it. In this case, that's like Reanimated Pterodax, Stitch Giant, right? Pterodax, I think, is part of what makes it so good in this is that it makes the Elise copy thing better. Because a lot of times you'll go Elise, you'll pick the 5, and you'll play the 5-cost location, but if you don't have a minion to target with summon a 5/5 copy, you just can't activate it, regardless of what the other half of the effect is. But having a Reanimated Pterodax, maybe you could have played it to clear something the previous turn, but you can save it to make sure that you can play it and summon a copy in the same turn. Stuff like that. And then also, being able to Corpse Explosion and then drop your Stitch Giant after the board is clear, right? Just, knowing sort of when to commit your stuff to kind of go for that maximal board swing kind of pressure, I think is a big part of the deck.
That could have been part of the problem I was having.
Yeah, it's very possible to walk into a board clear and overcommit into a board clear. And you do have to be careful about that. But also, hand size is also a thing, right? And sometimes you don't have a choice because you do just have a lot of stuff that puts more stuff in your hand. Like you're running Creature of Madness, that puts more stuff in your hand. Like Elise puts the location in your hand. You're running Xavius and some other things. And sometimes hand size can be a little bit of an issue, especially if you're getting Sanguine Infestation on curve. If you draw 3 cards off of Grifta, like you can end up in a spot where you kind of just have to dump your hand, especially if you've got some reactive stuff that you haven't really been able to use. So you do have to keep that in mind too. But you do want to just be aware of when you're potentially walking into a board clear. Maybe hold the Stitch Giant back a turn and then save it for after you've cleared is the best time, really, because then it's just like another 8/8 and you've already cleared anything that could trade it off. But certainly, like, if you have an otherwise weak turn, it's a good time to play it just to make sure that you're consistently pressuring and able to try to get some damage through.
Yeah. Or it might be things like, I could play the Stitch Giant, but it gets sort of killed for free on the board, or I could save it to play on the same turn that I Ziliax, where I clear some stuff and now I've got taunts protecting the Stitch Giant. That kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I am definitely learning some things that will help me if I pick up this deck, although I might just be like, well, post-surgery and preparing for classes next week and stuff like that, I'm just going to play aggro DH and vibe. It's
also like when there's an aggro deck that's very good, and I look at it and say, yeah, I'm sure it is.
But I did have fun with the Fyrakk Rogue, so I might give this another try now that I have more words of wisdom. Are there any other sort of like pitfalls that you two see when playing this deck that people might run into, or are those the main ones that you've talked about?
I mean, I feel like we covered most of it. I would say just, yeah, again, keeping in mind that we are, in general, not a I'm going to remove all your stuff forever deck, right? Like, you are actively trying to kill the opponent. And yeah, that means you do have to be aggressive sometimes. I guess one matchup in particular that I sort of have a trick for when possible is, if you're seeing some quest warriors, this is, it's different for mech because you kind of have to just sort of survive and then try and counter pressure and hope they don't have it. I feel like that one can be a tough matchup for this deck because you just need enough stats to not take 1,000,000 damage from the mechs. But against the like slower quest warriors, I want all that early game. I want Morbid Swarm, Creature of Madness, Handler, like whatever I can to get in chip damage, because oftentimes, like, the more you can do to their life earlier on, the more chance you'll potentially have to in the late game after they've started gaining a bunch of armor to go, okay, you're like in striking distance of being leeched to death. And that's where you can do stuff like, and if you have the opportunity, right, to get some leeches going early, right? Sometimes they just don't have the hostile invader, and it can really be tough for them. So yeah, trying to snowball either early chip damage, sanguine infestation leeches or whatever. Yeah, there's definitely ways you can win against warrior where it's just like, I don't care about your armor because I'm gonna leech you to death. And even if you aren't able to go the full distance that way, I think just being aggressive and doing your best to sort of, keep them from, if you get that far, them playing the quest reward. Like, you're very much the beatdown there. And I think, more often in some matchups than you would think.
I think the other thing that's important is just being intentional of where you want your leech damage to go.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
sometimes it's useful for it to be efficient killing minions, and other times you really want it to go face.
Yeah, and like sometimes you would rather have the corpse and have the leech suck face. That sounds gross. But but sometimes you would do that. Sometimes you'd rather keep the minion around and have the leech kill off whatever minions in the way. But like, there's very often a scenario early on where you have like 1 damage on a minion and you have like an ant or a hero power and you've got a leech on board, and that's a real decision. And don't autopilot that. Like, make sure that you understand where you want the leech to hit and why you want it to go there. Do you want it to permanently reduce their health, or does it not matter and you'd rather just have the minion on board? Assuming it's going to trade something off. Obviously, if it's a 0/1, then it's like, kill the thing, get the face damage. But
yeah, it seems like specifically what I've seen opponents do, if they have a hero power that's going to die at the end of the turn anyway, trade that into the minion, let the leech go face, because it might matter that they have a reduced health total. If it's a minion that you might want to keep around, then that might be different. But often I've seen people prioritizing that face lower health. Probably depends on matchup too.
Yeah, and also, like, when you've got one or more husks in play, there can be some sort of finicky math in terms of like, well, they have some like lower health minions in play, so I want to do whatever I can to clear those up, because you don't want to overkill something with leech drain, right? Like, both because you're not maximizing the health that you get, and because you could be maximizing damage. So there's a lot of instances where it's like, okay, do my best to clean up all their small things because I want the leech to actually drain for 2, or sometimes with a copy of Husk 3, rather than being wasted on a 1 health thing.
And sometimes you just got like a bunch of, like, there's something you don't want to die on the board, and you have to kind of whittle down the other things on board to have the leeches hit that first, instead of hitting the thing that you don't want to get to die and like pop a death rattle or whatever. So there's some games that you sometimes have to play there to be careful and play around that sort of a thing. That's a rare scenario in that I can't think of an example off the top of my head, though I know it's happened, but that is something where you have to kind of play around with where the leeches are going to hit. But the fact that you can control it, because it always goes after the lowest health thing on board, is a real, skill testing thing that you can play around, and you should be thinking about that and not just autopiloting those effects at the end of the turn.
Yeah, that also seems like it's a place where thinking about like saving your pterodactyl, like it's a balance, right? Because you were talking about, on the one hand we want to be aggressive, but on the other hand we don't want to overplay into clears, and we want to make sure we get value out of our cards because we're not like just all in aggro demon hunter maximum pressure now, right? It's a little bit of maximum pressure over the early to like the mid game and late mid game. So I don't know exactly what turns you would define that as. It probably depends on the matchup, but like you're thinking about maximum pressure over a slightly longer period of time than you are in like I'm trying to win on turn 5 aggro deck. My impression of this deck is that it's also a little bit like the Fyrakk Rogue in that like there isn't one win condition and we're not like a combo deck that's like, well, then you do this and this, and that's where all your damage comes from all the time. But especially if you're not doing the Dissolving Ooze in Edel's version, you're piecing your damage together from Ziliax sticking, from Fyrakk happening to do some face damage, from Saladricel, from the Husks. Right? So there's a lot of damage to be had here, but it's pieced together.
Yeah, and that's the reason that like you need to replace the Foam Render and the Headless Horseman with something like the Ooze in Edel's list, because like a lot of the consistent damage output comes from those two things. Like that's 8 damage a turn, right? If you have enough corpses to continue fueling the weapon and you have the hero power, that's 2 mana spent for 8 damage a turn that you ideally are sending face every time, right? And that will get there against most stacks. Without that, then you do need some other form of either consistent damage or burn damage or burst damage, which you have with the Ooze. But that's kind of the downside of replacing both of those things, is that you lose that consistent damage output that turns you from an attrition deck into a control deck with an eventual win con.
Yeah, I mean, I basically like to think of the way I built mine is to sort of like double down on the board swinginess of it, right? With staff and kind of the surprise factor, I guess, with the Ooze, right? Because there's sort of an understanding that people have taken out Egg, and then an assumption that Ooze is gone. Yeah, so I like having that surprise factor. The like argument for Egg, I think, for a while was that, well, in the mirror it eats leeches, right? Like you were talking about wanting to avoid leeches hitting a particular thing. For a while, that was the issue of like, oh god, I thought I had this advantage of all these leeches in play, and now it's just leeching their egg, right? So it gets closer and closer to actually popping out. In sort of the best case scenario, they copy it with the Elise location. That can be quite effective in the mirror, but ultimately, yeah, we sort of determined other stuff is better. If you do want to double down on that, yeah, I guess I'll post a list in the Discord. I made a deck that it cannot be called this deck, but it does share a lot of cards with it that just is all in on the egg.
So you basically made mine Blast Priest and Death Knight, is what you're saying.
I get, yeah, 2 Egg Bearers and 2 Fate Tricksters to make sure you get your Corpse Explosion, because the goal of the deck is to get a reborn egg. Because if you got 2 eggs out, then once you have like 5 or 6 corpses, the Corpse Explosion will just carry them both all the way until you get the 2020s, which is pretty funny.
I always forget when playing DK, because I don't play that much DK, that the Corpse Explosion counts corpses you gain in the middle, right? So
Yep.
Yes.
Keep going.
Just keeps going.
I feel like there was a point where they turned that off because of a particular case, and then, once that was rotated, they made it work again. I forget what the thing was, though. But yeah, it is quite funny, and most decks, if you do pull this off with any amount of expediency, like the fact that it definitely clears whatever they had in play, and then also gives you like a pair of 20 power minions that, you know, ideally have somewhere between 10 and 20 health, is hilarious.
Well, almost definitely, because if they had a Tortola, you're in for a bad time.
Sure.
Don't corpse explosion with a Tortola on board. Like that. That's my PSA
good.
to you. Yeah,
For sure.
it's not going to end the way you want it to end. I promise.
But yeah, that would be sort of the meme version.
So come join our Discord. It's a fun place. You can find other deck lists that don't make it into the show notes. So,
but yeah, I think that'll do it for today. We have many folks to like to thank. Check out the thanks section on the website at Concede.com. You can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Follow us on Blue Sky at CoinConcede, and write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@CoinConcede. And if you would like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. I'm going to CoinConcede to Blister Guy, who I faced earlier this week. I was testing out Pocket's Hunter, and Blister Guy was playing Quest Paladin, and doing the fun thing with the new Kindred Amalgam minion, because like the copy gets the buff again, basically, right? And I think he also had the double your next Kindred effect, right? So it's like you get a copy that has twice the stats, and then you get another copy that has twice that.
You might say it gets big.
Yeah, it gets big. And then I got 2 copies of Bob, and that was a very dirty way to win. So I'm sorry, Blister. But yeah.
Bob's not known for running a particularly clean tavern. So.
That freeze is unkind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You always got to wear a sweater when you're going over to Bob's Tavern. It's just very cold in there a lot of the time.
Yep.
Well, I'm also going to coin concede to Exotic Mango, who coin conceded to me on ladder this week, and I needed all the wins I could get on ladder this week, so I do appreciate that. And also to the very kind gentleman who was doing food delivery when we were walking from the Josh Johnston show to dinner, because we did not plan well, and we decided to walk half a mile in what we did not know was going to be a biblical rainstorm, and did not have our umbrella with us among the 3 of us. And there was somebody who was delivering food from one of the restaurants who was kind enough to at least hold his umbrella over us while we were waiting at a crosswalk before the light changed to give us like a moment of respite. We were basically drowned rats by the time we got to the restaurant. So
oh boy,
I was wearing like a regular cotton shirt and then a cotton polo, and it was like I felt like I was carrying around 10 extra pounds by the time that we got there, because it was just like soaked through the bone to the point where I was like having to wring it out when we got a chance to stop anywhere under an overhang.
Oof.
So yeah, luckily there was actually a tornado somewhere in Massachusetts that as part of that storm, so thankfully we didn't run into that, because that would have been much worse. But just getting wet is much better than ending up in Oz. But yeah.
Well, first, quick thank you to Contiguity for the sub just now during the show, and also coin concede to my husband, who is doing really well, but it's going to be a long recovery because it takes several. Right now, his arm is at 50 degrees, and they have to 10 degrees per week once they take off the cast, which will not be for 2 weeks. So it's going to be a while before he has the full range of motion. But I think it was still the right call to do the surgery. He technically could have not, but it would have been really reduced strength and more risk in that arm just forever. So it's like, no, it feels like we should fix that. And coin concede to my friend and my mom, who were both really helpful for me today, wanting to support while, I'm taking on a little bit more around the apartment and all of that kind of thing, and just keeping me company while I was waiting and not sure what was happening. But also going concede to the medical team for my husband. He said that they all seemed really good and everyone was very friendly, and the surgeon, as surgeons tend to do, seemed very confident, but said it was no problem finding the muscle, and the tendon looked good, and just had to reattach it. And so I'm glad that that went well, and I'm glad that we were first in the morning so I could still get back in enough time to do this.
Well, that's going to do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and count your corpses. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend.